Hey, what's up? This is Razzle Dazzle. Welcome back to another video. So previously I've posted on other people's channels, but today I'm going to be posting on my own. So what we're focusing on today is making a radar texture. Now this is useful for the Let's build that I'm about to be doing with you guys. Whether I post this on my channel or someone else's, make sure you leave a comment below and tell them that you appreciate them, that they're a beautiful person. Last time I posted videos on Olaf's channel. I'm not sure if I'm going to do that this time. I haven't talked to him in a long time, but hopefully he's doing good. So this is going to be a 2048 by 2048 texture. That isn't actually standard for radar texture. Usually they're 1024 by 1024, and I'm showing you that this is 4 times as large. Now right now I'm setting up the layers. You're going to want a few different layers, and I'll let you know about what each one is while we're making it. So first things first, make sure you save this file. It's actually really helpful to save it into your CSGO directory. So you can just put it into your add-on folder. I'm assuming you already know how to do that stuff. This isn't a tutorial for map making. This is a tutorial for level design. So if you want a map making tutorial, make sure you check out the Eagle One Discord. Make sure you check out Eagle One on YouTube. The Mapping Academy is the perfect introduction to CS2 level design, or CS2 level design, more like the Source 2 engine. I believe they have videos on CS2 level design as well. And I'm not saying that I'm the biggest genius in the whole universe, but I do know enough that I can teach it. So right now I'm looking at different pathing options. So this is your standard 4-lane, right? And the question is, what am I going to do differently, right? 3-lane. Jeez. So 3 lanes, standard 3-lane. It's funny because I'm voicing over a time lapse right now, but I think it's a little bit too fast for me. In any respect, right now I think I'm starting on some sort of a 3D visualization, right? Unfortunately, I can't see it. Yeah, this is a good time for me to hit pause, I guess, because I can't see what I'm actually recording. Alright, much better. So, what we're looking at right now is a sort of 3D visualization of what I'm going for. So at first I was thinking about having a dock with an underground cloning laboratory underneath it, but eventually you'll actually see that I flipped the script and I have all these paths that I'm drawing in now going up. It's actually good for a variety of reasons. When you're trying to return the hostage home, typically it's better to be moving pretty quickly and having the advantage on enemies that are already downstairs. So I do end up turning this around, but this is something that I encourage you to do, is before you really start drawing in your layout, I want you to think about the space in your head. I want you to visualize it. You should be thinking about where all the paths are going in your head, not necessarily where each individual box is, but what does it feel like to be in the space? What color are the floor tiles? This is the type of thing that you can think about before you start laying in any brushwork. And it'll help you immensely if you're not just going with the flow. If you have some ideas, whether you write them down, that's optional, or just really think about it and try to use your imagination to its full extent. Visualize, visualize, visualize. Because that's super, super important. The other thing that's really important that I see a lot of beginner map makers messing up is actually just inside versus outside. When you're making Counter-Strike level, the standards have been raised high enough that you need to be thinking about whether you're building an interior space, right, which is inside, or an exterior space, which is outside, before you start actually laying in any brushwork. You should really be thinking, is this going to be an outside area or is this going to be an inside area? I know that it seems like that's a really simple idea, but you'll notice while you're making your first or second or third map that quite often you're inside when you should be outside, or outside when you should be inside. And one particular lane on this map that I struggle with is actually the driveway, because I'm never quite sure whether I want it to be inside or whether I want it to be outside. Anyways, I can finally see what I've actually been up to. So I've been designing the lines, and that should be your first layer, is the lines for your pathing. So as you can see, I've got one spiraling driveway with a couple of different off-branching paths that connect up into it, and then a mansion above. You can see that on the bottom we've got our boat entrance, like the boathouse, and now is finally when I'm deciding that this driveway is actually looping up to the house, because it makes the most sense. So this is actually breaking again, so I'm going to take a quick pause. Alright, so I'm back. I can finally see what I've been up to, and I've actually gotten behind myself a little bit. So yeah, the lines, most important, critical first layer. Secondarily, you're going to be doing boxes. So boxes I've briefly touched on in prior videos, which you may or may not have seen. You can check them out on Olaf's channel on YouTube, OlafTW. But this is a much more advanced version, and this is actually super helpful for anyone at any level. Is when you're designing in the floor, make sure you box yourself in. So you should be thinking about your geometry. Make sure that you're including as many quads as possible and as few tries as possible, because we're working with the source engine. We like quads. Quads are best for normal maps, not normal maps, for UVs. So a UV is just the way that your computer puts textures onto these shapes or the geometry, right? And if you have triangles, the game doesn't quite know how to handle triangles for some reason. So quads are a lot better. It'll be easier for you in general if you use quads. You won't have lighting problems, or especially lighting problems, because tries create a lot of lighting problems for some reason. I believe at this point I'm working up the driveway, but I'm not entirely sure because my time lapse is frozen on the top right, so I'm kind of winging it. But I can at this point pause the video and make sure that I'm caught up. Alright, so I'm just going to explain the rest of the box layer. At some point the stream is going to just cut out like it just did, and then I have no idea what's going on. But what I'm essentially doing is I'm thinking about a world, right, where they're cloning, they're trying to make like some sort of a clone army, right? Like think distant future, not Star Wars, I promise, set on Earth, like some big war between two super countries, or maybe like modern day, like this is just happening somewhere in I guess my country, America. They're doing this evil, illegal cloning of soldiers, trying to do something like that, right? And what happens is two of the clones break free, and they kidnap the scientists, and they're trying to barter their freedom, right? But naturally, they're considered terrorists by the U.S., who send in soldiers to try to kill them. So at this point, what I'm doing actually is I'm starting to design this the main choke point for my map, right? And I'm going to be calling it Z, because I want to take advantage of Source 2 and create the craziest staircase that has ever been seen in Counter-Strike ever, aka just like wonky, crazy angles that you would only want to push up. So if you think about this, all of these are right-hand peaks coming up. Well, the main one is a right-hand peak coming up. So you're actually entering into two headshot angles in a row as you're pushing up the stairs as a CT. It's going to be highly beneficial for you. On the other hand, as a T, trying to hold this is going to be a nightmare. So that's what I'm trying to come up with. And something that's actually interesting is I've linked this up to the driveway in the original radar, but in game it's not linked up. So that's definitely something interesting. That's an interesting difference. So my live stream has actually stopped again, so I'm just going to make sure that I'm caught up. Interesting. So right now I'm actually detailing the stairs. Couldn't have told you that, but as you can see, I'm actually drawing an arrow, and the arrow goes from the bottom to the top. So at first, I actually think that this is going to be flights of stairs going down, because at this point, I'm still designing this whole map from like a CT spawning at the cave on top, going down into this underground mansion, slash like cloning laboratory. But I haven't really quite figured out exactly what this map looks like yet. So not everything is visualized in my head. Once again, try to visualize it. I visualized the port. That's kind of what I got, but I didn't quite make it all the way through the entire mansion yet. Um, and at this point, I'm coming up with the second entrance, which is maybe a vent or an elevator. So the ideas are definitely flowing, and I even added a squeaky door with the yellow. And you can see that the first pass of boxes is kind of coming to a close, especially with the downstairs section. Now at this point I'm working on the top floor, but I think it's the bottom floor as I'm making it. And as you can see, I'm designing this lobby kind of entrance coming off of the elevators. And you can actually see this entrance on Oasis in the actual map. The link will be in the description. The map is not finished. I got a lot of important feedback today, especially from some of my friends on Map Inc., who said that the map was too big, that it was too T-sided, and that the T's had all the cover, and etc. and etc. So I'll be doing some balancing changes to make sure that all of their feedback is accounted for, or at least most of it. After all, it is me. So at this point I have the bright idea of connecting this elevator path to the driveway. And this is actually a common theme that you'll see, which is that I deviate quite a bit from the sketch into Counter-Strike, like into Hammer, because I try building this path in Hammer and it's much too big and too long. But at this point I'm kind of just putting ideas on the paper, and I want to give myself some sort of idea of what the map will look like once I'm building it in Hammer, which is actually really important. You should be designing as much as you can on paper before you go into Hammer, because once you're in Hammer, you're going to get a headache trying to put together all the brushes and keeping all of your geometry in check, right? All of that is a nightmare. But on paper, it's just a pencil and your imagination. So it's going to be a lot easier for you to work out kinks in your map just by using your imagination. And right here, as you can see, I've got CT spawn on the bottom, wrapping up, even though it kind of looks like it's going down, wrapping up into the level. And what you might notice is actually that there are several entrances into this lobby, right, or into the upper floor, kind of going in time order. So as a CT, you can choose to enter at various different points to try to get into the game. And this is actually exactly the way that it plays in game as well. Now at this point, I don't actually know exactly what I'm doing here, because this does not appear in game at all. So I'll just talk about why this didn't work out. So first of all, the long path doesn't work. Second, I'm thinking that I'm going down, but as I think more and more, I realize that the driveway would be interfering with a lot of the existing paths. They would actually be in the same space, and geometrically what I'm making is impossible. And that'll happen to you if you're not making a very flat map. For example, this house and the driveway should actually be occupying the same level right here. So I'm designing this pool area, and I'm thinking about like what a cool modern house this is going to be sitting on, like underneath a cave, right, with like a big like harbor underneath it. Kind of like a modern house inside of a huge bat cave is what I'm going for. But what I ended up doing is actually getting the house to sit on top of a cliff, on top of a bunch of orange rocks. And that's the way it worked out finally. But right now, I'm finally sort of starting to think, like, hold on, I can't have the driveway go over the house, right? Like, that doesn't make any sense. So, I finally have like this idea that, I wonder if all of this is actually kind of reversed, and the house is on top of the driveway. And now I'm thinking about pathing through the house, how this is going to work, right? And I think I'm still a little bit confused because the house and the driveway are at kind of different scales. Like, if that's actually the size of an entire house, then this driveway is humongous, because that house itself is already the size of a bunch of Counter-Strike maps in my head. So theoretically, the house should be the size of the entire map, like if we're actually building it to scale, because right now that house is absolutely tiny. we're talking maybe like 3 rooms at the scale that I'm currently working at. So if this ever happens to you, make sure that you have like a visualization of how big a player is, even if it's like a 30 pixel wide brush, or make a 64 crate every once in a while, because at this point I've totally lost myself to the sauce of scaling this map, and I have 2 completely different scales, and that problem actually won't get resolved until my next patch, because a bunch of people noticed it and they were like, hold on a second, um, this map is too big for Counter-Strike. Like, everything is too large. You need to scale it down. Like, the individual elements are scaled right, but that's actually a common theme. And so I'm gonna have to go back and shrink a bunch of this stuff. And I think once I shrink it and make it a bit faster to walk up the driveway, for example, for CTs, and also I'm gonna need to do an audio blocker between the driveway and the house itself. That is gonna greatly improve gameplay. So at this point, I'm doing the finalization pass. So after you're done with boxes, this is where you can really let your architectural mind shine. And what you're going to do is, instead of thinking about geometry anymore, I want you to go full architect mode and just think about the walls of all of your buildings. So blocks is specifically for the floor. Now remember that your floor and your wall geometry should always be separate objects. Always. That's extremely, extremely important. Otherwise, your geometry is going to be terrible, because you're going to need to run cuts from the floor into your walls, and if you need to run cuts on your walls, for example to make windows, they'll end up on your floor. And that just shouldn't happen. All geometry should be as simple as possible, and if that means that you need to make more objects, that's great. Your entire map should never be just one object. If it is, you failed and you should restart. Even if it's just your first version of your first test map. Never just select the loop around all of the walls and stack it up. Don't do it. It's lazy. Instead, I want you to individually make building after building. And maybe if there's like an outside area and you just want to make like a quote unquote fence, right? Then go for it. That's fine. But not if you're going to be making like a museum and you want to just quickly like raise the walls up and put a ceiling on it. Don't do that. It's not good for playtesting. The map will play way worse than if you just put a little bit more effort into it. Like what I'm doing right now, designing the floor plan for this house in the finalization step. Even though this doesn't actually turn into what it looks like in the end, this is what my original idea is. And this probably would have played great if I had scaled it properly, but I don't. And I'm not done drawing it yet either, but I don't end up scaling this properly in the end. But what I'm thinking about here is just like, what's a nice sort of structure for a hostage map? I want to have plenty of rooms. I want to make sure that the T's can hide properly inside of the house. That way, if the CTs get the opening pick, if the T's are being too aggressive, the second T can try to win the round by camping inside of the house, like playing inside of a broom closet or a bathroom, etc., etc. And also that CTs have ample opportunities to hide and save if they want to, because the majority of the CT side of the map is pretty plain, like not a lot of cover, except the original hostage rescue area by the port. So this is all very important to keep in mind. Now I'm labeling the rooms. This is going to help me for detailing purposes once I'm in game, because even your first gray box should have simple furniture and cover. You should at least have an idea about what the purpose of each room is in the world that your map is set in, right? This isn't 2012. You should be thinking about your map as both a Counter-Strike environment and a real-world environment. Those are the kinds of maps that actually get in game, except Grail. No offense. I love playing deathmatch on that map, but you need to think about both the purpose for so key thing to keep in mind is actually that your map, right, should be based off of Counter-Strike gameplay first, but also reality, because reality is going to impact your Counter-Strike gameplay. You know what I'm saying? So you need to take into account the reality so that your map has unique Counter-Strike gameplay. Because the best kind of Counter-Strike gameplay is the kind of map that is boring to play and over simple. There should be a balance between the kind of salty flavor of a good map and the kind of bitter flavor of a headshot angle or something that you have to memorize about a map. Um, and the best way to, and really the only way to include stuff like that is from reference, or at least something that brings the map into the real world. Um, and there's some pretty bad examples of this in older Counter Strike levels, like 2012 Inferno, or was it 2011 Inferno? There's a really old version of Inferno that 20, a map maker that you guys all probably know, made Memento, among other maps. Uh, he was showing me around one of those old maps from CS:GO, one of the older Inferno versions, and it has some of the most atrocious cover that I've ever seen. I mean, I'm being completely honest. Like, mini pit, I didn't realize why it was called pit. It's because it's like a pit stop, because there used to be a broken down truck there. And let me tell you, or not a pickup truck, like a tow truck. And the tow truck has the worst angles imaginable. Now, at this point, I'm actually uh, moving into Hammer so that we can port our texture over. And I should have mentioned that I actually saved it. I'm going to be going into the material editor and I'll be turning it into a texture. Uh, I'm going to make sure to cover that process. Okay, psych, actually I'm not going to go into real time. Right now I'm just scaling it. But the way you're going to do it is just by saving it simply as a PNG, dropping into Hammer, and then you should be saving it as a PNG into a materials folder inside of your add-on file. So make sure the file structure is proper. You can look up a tutorial for how to add your own custom material. It's pretty simple. Just make sure that you do that. It should only take you 5 minutes to learn, tops. Okay, so go ahead and do that now. If you are following along with me, I don't know how you could possibly have been following along with me because I can't follow along with me. I'm being completely honest. But at this point, I'm pretty sure that I've gotten the scale of the map right. I might still be tweaking it a little bit here and there. But ideally, what you want to do is get that texture to more or less line up with a grid. And then you're going to want to configure it such that your 64 crate is 64 units wide, or your squeaky doors are 128 units wide. And the best way to do that is just to drop a brush down onto your work there and make sure that it lines up. So, yeah.